Our new kittens are wrestling in the background, so I'm going to try and make this quick so we don't have like weird ASMR going on in the background that reminds you of your traumatic past at the Animal Humane Society or something like that. I don't know what kind of backstory you guys have going on, okay? There's some furries in this community, and I'm expecting that some of them were occasionally confused for other animals and maybe taken to the pound. I don't know. I try and be nice, but Gotham Knights just got a huge update. This actually happened about, I think, 4 days ago. I've been really sick. I think stomach flu or food poisoning. I don't know which. When you're going to the bathroom 6 times within a few hours, that's a bit of a yikes. But Gotham Knights at least is doing a little bit better than it was when it comes to its performance, its stability, and its frame rate. Now, I want to talk about this a little bit. This isn't really a first impressions video. I feel like I'm not far enough in the game yet to like give like full on educated impressions because I haven't actually tried co-op yet. I am a couple hours into the game. But when it comes down to it, my biggest criticism with this game so far has been that it performs poorly. Now, I know a lot of people are willing to look past that. That's great. I'm happy for you. But when it comes right down to it, the frame rate at launch for this game was not great. It was struggling to hit 30 FPS really ever. A lot of the times it seemed to be fluctuating anywhere from 20 to late 20s FPS. And sometimes it would just straight up pause for like a millisecond and you'd kind of see the game skip ahead, especially when you were on the bat cycle driving through Gotham. Part of it was the 4K, part of it was them trying to go for visuals, it really seemed like. And of course, they did have their entire thing where they said like, oh, well, just lowering the resolution, you know, that wouldn't just make it better. I don't remember who said it. I believe it was one of the developers was kind of like blaming the Xbox Series S for the game's release capped at 30 FPS. And they were saying like, well, you know, you can't just lower every game's resolution and all of a sudden it gets better. But what's weird about this update is that that's literally what it did and the game runs better. So I'm not really sure what they were talking about or like why this is the case. Now, I will say that there are some semantics here and details. Like, for example, there's a little bit more pop-in now, which I don't know if you guys know what that term means, but basically it means when you're moving around a world, you might see something in the distance load in, right? So like a good example of this is Fallout. Fallout and Skyrim are like big examples of it, where especially the early releases of them, you'd be walking around and you're walking and then you see trees pop in the distance or load in, stuff like that. I know that really bothers some people. For me, it bothers me more when it's super egregious. It's not something I've noticed a ton of in Gotham Knights since this update, but a lot of people are complaining about the visual downgrade because it's not staying just at 4K anymore. It is now enabling dynamic resolution. What I personally think is that this should have been an option. So that's what's weird to me about it, is that they didn't go with an option, because I know some people prioritize frame rate. Like for me, I prefer how the game flows, how it runs. Do I want it to look nice? Yes, but I am completely satisfied putting in a PlayStation 1 game and playing it. You know, like right now we're Let's Playing Silent Hill 1 over on our Let's Play channel, Degenerate Plays. We're also Let's Playing Gotham Knights, so if you're interested in seeing that, the first couple parts are up. I believe after part 3 or 4 is when they release this update. Part 3 should be going up today. I'm just waiting on it to process. So basically you can kind of see the difference there if you want to. I have about probably an hour to an hour and a half of the game without this update, but then with 1.006, this update was added and it made it so that it basically just runs at 30 FPS. There's still the occasional issue with the frame rate, but it's nothing compared to what it was. So my cats were so opinionated about this patch, I had to move them to a different room for a few minutes. But basically what it comes down to is this. The game got updated, the frame rate is more stable, it crashes less often, which I never experienced any crashes pre-patch. Some people say they did, I believe them. I didn't, but I also didn't play the game enough pre-patch to have probably gotten that experience out of it either. Also, I didn't play it enough pre-patch to really notice the downgrade in visuals, but also, like I said before, I'm someone who prefers how the game runs. Do I want the game to look nice? Yeah. But for me, that's more like frosting on top of the cake. You know, it's more like a finishing touch, like sprinkles. I don't want it to look terrible for when it came out. Like, I don't think you should be releasing a $70 game that looks like a PlayStation 1 game now, right, with its graphics, or performance or anything like that. But when it comes down to it, a big hindrance for me enjoying this game so far was the performance. When I was doing combos and it was dropping to 20 FPS, or when I was driving through the city and the game was struggling and became a PowerPoint for a couple seconds at times. That kind of stuff really doesn't look good. It's really immersion breaking with a game, at least for me. And it really just kind of hurt my eyes. I hate to be that guy, like the frame rate elitist, because I'm really not. I don't really expect anything to run over 60. Anything between 30 to 60 to me is actually acceptable. When you start falling below that for me, and some of my favorite games did, like the original Demon Souls, it does genuinely hurt my eyes. Now, I have more sensitive eyes than some people, so maybe that's just a me thing. You know, like maybe I am just a wimp. But when it comes down to it, I prefer the game to run smoother, and it's seeming like it's doing a much better job of doing that. However, like I was going to say before I had to move the entire pound out into the hallway, this is something that I do think should have been a option. So instead of basically forcing ray tracing and so Miles Morales is a good example of this. I know people were pointing this out on Reddit and other places. The good thing about the performance mode versus the visual fidelity modes when you have those in games is that people can choose. I personally think that this game should have probably been delayed so that you could have had that with a not as good looking Gotham City, but 60 FPS. But as of right now, they have kind of forced out an update that made it not quite as good of a looking Gotham City by enabling dynamic resolution, some pop-in and other stuff, but it's still capped at 30 FPS, but now it actually runs at 30 FPS. I hope that that makes sense because it's a little complex. Basically, the game launched, it did not run at 30 FPS a lot of the times like they had kind of said it was capped at. It was more like that was a high end, which was not good. And then the game got this patch and it now runs much more at 30 FPS, but it looks a little worse. That's the simplest way to explain it. I really don't understand why they couldn't do this as an option, though, why they couldn't have this, at the very least, be their performance mode, and then later down the line add another one. You could have very easily done visual fidelity mode, which is their 4K. It doesn't run all the time at 30 FPS, but it gets close, and sometimes it does, especially indoors. Worked fine a lot of the times. And then have this sort of semi-visual fidelity performance mode where it's capped at 30, but it actually runs at 30. It has a little bit of pop-in and enables dynamic resolution. And then maybe a mode in the future that's like, let's just say it's like 2K, not 2K Sports, but like 1440p or something like that. And it runs at 60 FPS. I don't know why they couldn't do something like that. Instead, this actual patch is forced into the game where you just have to play it that way. That's one thing that I do think is a little annoying for people because, like, for me, this is going to be my preferred way to play the game. I prefer games running smoothly. However, there are some people, now listen, I'm not trying to judge you. I don't understand these people, but there are some people who just want the game to be pretty and they don't care about the frame rate. Like, they don't care about it becoming a PowerPoint once in a while in the cities. They don't feel about, they don't really care about that kind of stuff. I do. That bothers me. There's some people that don't. So, like, you know what? Fair enough. They should still have the option. That's like my one main criticism about this patch. But I do still think that the game actually runs a lot better. What's kind of too bad is that if this had been in the game at launch with an actual option between the two, I think this game might have been reviewed a little better because performance was one of the main things I saw outlets talking about in terms of it running bad. But I don't know. I don't really care about the downgrading in graphical resolution. I care about how the game runs personally. But this is kind of another nail in the coffin of almost it would have been better to wait to release Gotham Knights. And I actually think people who buy the game now are going to be getting a better experience than the people who bought the game at launch, which is sad. And I'm very tired of that in gaming in general. That's why to me this is both a positive and negative story because yes, awesome. Please fix how games run. I love it. Don't leave them without that feature. But I'm also very tired as a 27-year-old man who, like, in internet years is like 65 basically, of getting games, them becoming better down the line, and the early adopters or early buyers who bought the game and supported it at full price getting almost a worse experience. That's something that really bums me out. I'm very tired of it with gaming. This is another example of it, so it's positive and negative. Am I happy they fixed this? Yes. Am I unhappy that they forced it on people who didn't want it? Yes. And also, am I unhappy that this game didn't just launch with these features? Yes. I've been having a fun time so far with the game, more fun than some people, I think, partially because I really buy into the Bat family characters, you know, Nightwing, Robin, Batgirl, and Red Hood. I really love those characters, and it's nice to see more of a spotlight on it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I am going to be playing the game more. I said eventually that I do want to do top 5s and stuff like that. I'm sure by then that a lot of the hype will have worn off, and that's fine. I try and play games at my own pace, and like when I'm sick and dealing with all kinds of other stuff, I'm just trying to make sure I can still make content, talk to you guys, fill you in on stuff, and, you know, do the more project-based videos as well. Like, for example, I have a project-based video, a rejected media coming up, I believe, on Jack and Daxter. So some stuff going on there. And my wife Jill is working very hard over on her channel, Magical Jill. She actually recently put up a Gotham Knights video, which I thought was really good. I was in that. It involved the voice actress of Batgirl, who actually played Barbie in a lot of the different Barbie adaptations, America Young. She does a very good job, so we talked a bit about that. I hope you'll check that out. The link to her channel is in the description down below. She's at over 250 subs right now. We're working to get her channel bigger and monetized so we can do more stuff together and kind of, you know, create a bit of a safety net and follow your dreams, kids. We hope you have a fantastic day. And as always, everyone, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and stay shway.